the year that Wat Tanaram was established in Manchester.
Culmination, a finale.
King Bhumibol Adulyadej Brahma IX had been crowned for 60 years in 2549. This year is the year that Wat Tanaram was established in Manchester. Wat Tanaram is one of the Thai temples in the United Kingdom under the management of the Buddhist Dhamma organisation of the UK. Wat Tanaram has been approved as a charity by the local council, registration number 1124872, under the jurisdiction of Somdek Pramahar Thirachan, the Chancellor of Wat Po Temple, who is the head of monks and in charge of all overseas Thai temples for the World Buddhist Dhamma organisation. Originally, Wat Tanaram was located in South Manchester, but later moved to its current location in North Manchester. The main reason for building Wat Tanaram was that Kun Piamporn Warawai Berard and all the Thai Buddhists living in the northwest wanted a Manchester temple, and Pra Ratchavita Panyakun allowed and also supported one of the Buddhist Dhammadutta, Brahmaha Haganon Buttamate, whose current rank is Prakru Sri Tamarika, to open a new temple in the UK on the 28th of October 2549, in land covering 57 rai or 22 acres. May this coming year bring you all the desired success and happiness in your life. Wishing you a successful and prosperous 2023. Happy New Year!
Because whenever there is a sense of self, a sense of me, an ego, there'll always be a sense of like mine, what I want, what is mine, what is under my control, what I need, what I have to do. Because these things always go together, the I and the mine. If you start to look at the sense of self in on this thing we call self or soul. Because when you start to ask people, self or soul, what actually is it? We have a feeling for what it is in our mind. When you ask a person, who are you? What is this thing in the center of you? What is this person, this me, this self, this soul, whatever you wish to call it? We have like a sort of idea there's something there, but of course, it's very hard, impossible even, actually to put it into words, to give it some sort of substance and color and shape. So instead of actually asking what a thing is, there's another very beautiful technique to get a handle on things. Instead of what it is, what does it do? In the same way, you say, what is a car? There, just like this microphone or like this bell over here, it's not a being, it's not a person, it's not an animate thing. To be a being, it has to do something. This is actually almost like the definition of being. To put it into a nutshell, as I mentioned here, probably the last time I talked about anatta. There was these three very famous philosophers in Western culture. The earliest one was René Descartes, who once said to be is to do. You notice the equivalence of those two, being and doing. If you don't do anything, you're not being. To be is to do. But it was actually Jean-Paul Sartre, the existential philosopher in France, who actually turned it around. Instead of is to be is to do, he said, to do is to be. He was the activist. It was only very, very late in the Second World War when a great American philosopher actually put them all together. And he wrote in this beautiful articulate piece, Doobie Doobie Doo, and that was Frank Sinatra. And that was just to show that that's an old joke, but it's a very good one, because sometimes that people get on these talks about anatta and philosophy and they take it far too seriously. But there is a lot of truth there that a self, a soul, a me, a person is what does it do? What's its function? What's its purpose? Now, the whole purpose of a self, of a me, is actually to do something, to create, to own, to get involved in the world. It's the same with the idea of a God, because the idea of a soul and the idea of a God go together. Now, a God has to do something to be, certainly to be relevant in society, in the world. The idea of a God just starting off the universe and then sort of having a holiday for the rest of creation, it makes it irrelevant, doesn't it? Okay, so it might have pressed the button, but who cares afterwards? To be relevant, it's got to keep on doing something, create a few miracles or disasters or something or other. Otherwise, it's completely irrelevant. It just shows to do is to be is to do. In the same way in a person, a self. So what do we actually do? Or rather, what do we actually own? What is our area of responsibility? In the same way, using a simile of a worker in a company. What do they do? What's their area of responsibility? What part of the company do they control? This is your company here. What do you actually control? What do you do? This is where we can start to really understand the usefulness of the anatta doctrine. Because you understand, you've all experienced big egos, big bosses, big politicians, big presidents, the Führer. These are people who want to control the whole world. They've got such huge egos. There's many other people, they want to control their company or their monastery. Somebody actually, we just got a new committee, and on our committee, we have the telephone numbers of all of the committee members, from the president, the secretaries, treasurers, and even me. So I'm supposed to be the spiritual director. But I don't know if it was a joke or it was a Freudian slip, but someone wrote Ajahn Brahm, spiritual dictator. People with big egos want to control even the Buddhist societies. But, and you understand just how much suffering that is, and how much problems that sort of makes when people want to be control freaks. How many of you want to control your family? Control your husband, your wife, your kids? That's a bit of control freak as well, isn't it? And what happens when you start to do things like that? Can you see that when you really try to control so much, that you get into a lot of suffering? And after all, what does non-self mean? This isn't me, this isn't mine. So the whole idea of actually getting to grips with non-self is like using what do you own? What do you think you control? What is your business anyway in life? Do you really own your children? Do you own your wife, your husband, your parents? Now, I'm sure that many of you have been in relationships which have been very domineering, and just how painful and how much suffering there is. And some of you may be privileged to be in relationships where you never feel like you're owned, but you're respected. where you're not dominated, but that you're taken as an equal partner. And this is realizing that that person isn't mine. It's not my wife. That's another person there, with their own sort of rights, with their own responsibilities, with their own sensitivities, but certainly not mine. When you have like a boss in a company who thinks that it's your work, they're paying you anyway, so you can tell them what to do, that's a terrible situation to be in. Same in a relationship with another person. When they're controlling you, it's a terrible relationship. And after all, that other person, people should know, of course they're not yours. They came into your life, they're going to leave your life. The same with your children. How many parents get into a lot of problems and suffering because they think the child who's been born from their womb is my child, my son, my daughter? I was trying to mention last week that you just give that person the body and you train them, you look after them, give them an education, feed them. But where that person came from, the important part of them, their mind, their stream of consciousness, whatever you wish to call it, their character, coming with all its karma from past life, who knows where that came from? When a woman becomes pregnant, you've got this body in there just waiting for something to come in. Who knows what will come in? There have been wonderful parents who have had monsters for children. There have been monstrous parents who have had saints for children. And of course, you're probably somewhere in between. Although sometimes you think, maybe on the monster side with your children. But why is that? Now, every sort of child psychologist would know it can never be explained just by genetics or by the situation of the parents or the economics or the whatever else. Well, there's so many other factors there. It can only be something which comes in to the child from birth, something outside of the parents. So that's why, as a good mother, you should look at your child as someone who's a friend for a few years, someone who's come into your life but doesn't belong to you. Nature will teach that to you. When your child leaves home, when they go their own way, and you realize they're not an extension of you, but they're not part of your body like your arm or your leg, which you can tell what to do, but they will go their own way. The sooner one realizes that, the children aren't mine. They're just my responsibility for a while. The whole attitude becomes different. Instead of being a controlled, domineering attitude, it becomes a sense of responsibility, a sense of care and love, but a respect for that being as being independent of us. In other words, we can learn how to let go. And even if that child does something we don't like, even really does something, the worst thing that child can do, die. And even then, if we realize that that is not ours, a child has come in according to its own karma, its own nature, and is now gone. We don't need to grieve and to be upset. It wasn't ours in the first place. It came in unbidden. It went without saying farewell. That is the nature of life and death. So the idea of non-self in this sense is realizing that we don't control. It's not a person who owns another person. But deeper than that, be able to let go of our loved ones, be able to let go of our possessions. They're not ours. All the things which you own in this world, your house, your car, your bank balance, doesn't really belong to you. Eventually someone else will take it. If it's not the government, it will be your children or someone else. So when we realize this is not ours, we don't tend to worry about it so much. How often is it that we get into the illusion of ownership? What do you really, truly own? This is what we mean by investigating non-self. What do you really own in life? It's precious little. your car, your house, your bank balance. This is just only there for a short while. When you realize you don't own it, it means you can very easily let it go when it's time. In Buddhism, we have this idea of like hungry ghosts. Hungry ghosts who are so attached to their material possessions that when they die, they keep hanging around. Keep hanging around looking after their possessions, what they think of their possessions. It's attachment. They won't let go. Now, don't be like a hungry ghost. Be able to let go. More importantly, deeper in than our physical possessions and our loved ones, we have this thing called our body. And because we've been with this body so long, sometimes we think we really own this body. That we are this body, we identify with this body. This is again where an illusion of selfhood comes from. Very often that people think that they are sophisticated and wise enough to know this body isn't theirs. One day they've got to leave this body, they've got to die. But how many people are really prepared for that? It's always a good test of your understanding of life, of what you can let go of. For example, I was telling somebody earlier today about this man who went to the doctor, and the doctor said only 3 months to live. He was just devastated. I said, well, there's nothing I can do. He said, well, the only thing you can do is to apply mud packs. What do you mean apply mud packs? Will that make me healthier? He said, no, it won't make you healthier, but it'll get you used to living in the ground. Thank you. That's a fish joke I only heard today. Nevertheless, so when we actually look upon this body of ours, how many of us are ready to go in the ground right now? With or without backpacks. But why not? It's because we think that we really own this body of ours. What part of this body do you really own? When you actually start to contemplate this, you're contemplating the way the Buddha asked the monks and the nuns to contemplate. Keep looking at this body of ours. What part of it is yours? If it really was yours, you could actually tell it what to do. But my body goes its own way. Last week I had the flu. I was really quite surprised I got the flu because I went through India and I went through Thailand. They're supposed to be very unhealthy countries, dirty, no cleanliness, especially in India. And I was fine, really fit. Come back to Australia after 8 or 9 days, I'm down with the flu. It shows Australia's a very unhealthy country. So it surprised me. And also, when you get sick, how inconvenient it is. I had all these things to do. It's very inconvenient being sick then. But I couldn't stop it. There's nothing you can do to stop sickness when it comes. So you understand that this body does not belong to me. This is not Ajahn Brahm's body. I told many people here before, because as a monk, so I've got even less control than you have, especially less control about what I eat. Because I just get fed by you lot. And you put into my stomach not what I like, but what you think I like, or what you like. Because they got this, especially in Thailand, I'm not quite sure if it's the same in Sri Lanka and Burma, they've got this tradition, this Buddhist tradition, that whatever food you give to a monk or a nun, that's the food which you will get when you go to heaven. So everybody keeps feeding me the food that they want to get when they go to heaven, which is maybe not the type of food I'd like to get when I go to heaven. And so I keep telling people, my stomach no longer belongs to me. It belongs to you lot. So you put into my stomach what you like, not what I like. I've got no control over this. And the rest of my body, again, it doesn't really belongs to nature. That's what this body belongs to. When nature wants to make it sick, it gets sick. Nothing to do with me. When nature wants to make it old, it gets old. When nature wants to take it back and die, it dies. How many people really want to die? Very, very few people. It's usually, if you want to die, say, no, 1 more week, please. Just so I can, after 1 week, another week, please. It's always like tomorrow. Interesting, even like 80-year-olds. Are you ready yet? No, maybe 1 more week. 90, not quite yet. 100. It's always maybe later on, but not now. Now is inconvenient. So this body does not belong to us. When it doesn't belong to us, you don't worry so much about it. So imagine that sort of, I'm very compassionate, I think, but if any of you get sick, I don't worry about it that much, quite honestly. There's it's the same with you, isn't it? I mean, even if someone you're very close to, gets sick, do you really worry about it that much? A little bit maybe, but not as much as when you get sick. Come be honest. That's why actually there's a lovely story. It's a very deep story from the time of the Buddha. There's one of his chief disciples was a queen. One of his other disciples was the king. The king had many wives in those days. And they're just really into suffering. But anyway, men are stupid. See, that balances it. But anyway, his wife was also a devoted Buddhist. And the monks, would go on alms round into the city every now and again. And one day the Buddha was going on alms round in the city. And this Queen Malika, his name was looking through the window and saw the Buddha. And she was gazing upon this wise, compassionate, amazing monk, just, with such wide eyes. It was almost like being obsessed with this monk. And the king saw his chief wife just gazing adoringly at this monk, and he got jealous. So he went up to her and said, okay, who do you love more, the Buddha or me? It was one of those questions which was like double-edged. Whichever way she answered, it seemed she'd get in trouble. But she was wise. She said, to the answer to that question, who do you love more, the Buddha or the king, her husband? She said, I love myself more. Great answer. And the king thought about that and said, that's really strange. So he went to see he went straight away to see the Buddha, told him what had happened. And the Buddha said, that's a very wise woman. Because most people, we think we're compassionate, but a lot of times, actually what we're really loving is ourselves. Even as I remember reading in a Time magazine many years ago on the psychology of love, when a man and a woman fall in love, actually they say that what they really love is they don't love the other person. They love the way the other person makes them feel. They love that feeling of being in love. It's only when the other person is around that feeling is generated inside of them. There's a nice, interesting thing to actually to contemplate, whether that's true or not. The person you love most in this world is yourself. Anyway, when we look upon this body of ours, this is the one we're most concerned with. But if we can only realize that this is not us, this is not me, this is not ours, it's much easier to let it go from time to time, not to worry about it for so much. And so much of illness comes from worry, tension and concern. So if we just let the body go and relax, it tends to get better. A lot of times, people get sort of tensions or pains in the body. And how many times have you had a pain and thought it was like a heart attack, or thought it was cancer, or thought it was foot and mouth disease or something? Have you looked in your mouth recently? Whatever it is. But People worry so much. Like, we have the term hypochondriacs, but we're all hypochondriacs to a certain degree. It's just like, if it really goes over the top and becomes a sort of a big thing. But in this particular case, if we can just let go of our body and realize this isn't our body, this isn't ours, this is one body amongst many we've lived in, we're going to get another body next time, we're not so concerned about it. If through the luck of the draw, the luck of the karma, you've been born ugly in this lifetime, don't worry about it. It's not such a big deal. Next time you may get a better chance. Or if you've been born with, I don't know, like young men and young women, you're just so concerned, aren't you, about your appearances? And it's, especially, at least with men, after a while, they can let go of their appearances, but women have to keep worrying about how they look for so many years. And it's so painful. I mean, it is, isn't it? Come on, be frank about it. Just worrying whether, your makeup, your hair's right. But when you become a nun, it's great. You don't have to worry how your hair looks at all. Or your makeup is same to. But look, it's when you don't worry so much about sort of your appearances or your bodies, so much more freedom. Sometimes people come to like monasteries or nunneries, ask, why do you shave your hair? Why do you just wear these robes? Because it's marvelous not to have to worry about what you look like. To be free of that. Because you are not the body. So I don't care what people say about how I look. That's why that classic story many years ago when I was first in Perth, in Magnolia Street in North Perth, and that I was in my robes, loading up our vehicle to go back to Serpentine Monastery, and this girl came out. She must have been about 10 years of age. And she came out from the house next door, and she looked me up and down with utter disgust. I was just wondering what she was up to, and then she opened her mouth and just, I'm not quite sure how she learned how to do this. She was only 10 years of age, but it was very effective. And she said, "You're dressed like a girl. That's sick. Yuck." I always remember that. And of course, I just burst out laughing because I thought it was so funny, and it gave me another nice story to tell on a Friday night. So I thank that girl very much. But, I don't care what I look like. It's okay these days because, people know monks. But, 18 years ago when I first came here, people hadn't got a clue who I was and what were you doing. But you don't care about what you look like. And that sort of makes so much more freedom in life. I am not my body. Or if I'm sick, it doesn't matter if you get sick. Actually, being sick is a wonderful gift to other people. It gives other people a chance to be compassionate. There's a lot of compassionate people out there who just haven't got the opportunity to practice compassion. So when you get sick, I'm sick, here I am. Now, come on, be compassionate. So you get all these lovely monks, these macho monks, whatever you call it, in the monastery looking after me. Really nice. It brings out the sort of the softness in people. So it's wonderful being sick. So if you're sick, you're giving an opportunity for others to practice their compassion. So don't just try and do things for yourself. If you're going to be sick, try and be really sick to give them more opportunities for compassion in the world. But when you're not so worried about your body, then it's very easy to relax and let it go. So many people are so worried about health and how long they're going to live. And that's probably why they die so quickly. So let go, this body's not yours. And when it's time for nature to take it back, okay, I've had a good time, together, great time, see you, I won't catch up with you later, goodbye. So you can let go of this body. And also you can let go of other people's body. This body is not yours. At least that much you can see as anatta, not self, not me, not mine. And if human beings could at least do that much, to realize that the body is not a self, all this racism, genderism, other isms about who's the superior body, who's the most beautiful, the most fit, the smartest, or whatever else, it can all just go out the window. It's just bodies, that's all. not the person. So we don't judge by what you look like, or how fast you can run, or how youthful you look, how tall, how small, how black, how white. All those body things we can just leave aside. Even sick or healthy. So that what quite a lovely advertisement said about, I think, MS is, don't look at the disease, look at the person. That's why that I was just telling the people in the Armadale group last Tuesday, just saying a few of the things which I get up to, talking to the Cancer Support Association. They came to the monastery just a week ago. And someone asked me, well, what do you actually talk to those people about? I say, I tell them my jokes. And I told them the story, which is a very good story, that some years ago there was a Buddhist nun, an Australian nun. She was a Tibetan nun, but we have Tibetan, Theravada, this sort of stuff, but the monks and nuns actually, no matter what tradition, we get on really well together. And so she was actually staying in our monastery at Serpentine for a while. And then she got very sick, really sick with cancer. She was actually on the last few weeks at the hospice in Shenton Park. And I would actually go and visit her from time to time when she was there. And then she got very close to her end, and like many people, she knew she only had a couple of days left. I got a phone call in the monastery from her saying, can you come around? Because, I'm going maybe next day, maybe 2 days. And so, I stopped whatever I was doing and got in the monastery car, went up to Shenton Park. It's a long way from Serpentine to Shenton Park. And when I got there, you had to check in at the reception, first of all. I was checked in the reception and saying, just going to come to see this nun. And the receptionist and nurse said, I'm sorry, but she's given absolute instructions that no one is allowed in. She doesn't want to see anybody. I said, well, that's really strange, because she rang me only an hour ago. And she said, can I come up? And I've just come up. And she said, no, absolutely. She said, no, but said, she must be something wrong here. And so the receptionist took me to the door and pointed at the door. And sure enough, there's a big notice there, absolutely no visitors. But right on the bottom there was, except Ajahn Brahm. So see? And so I went in. And I asked her, I said, why did you put that notice on? It was very flattering. Why did you say absolutely no visitors except Ajahn Brahm? And what she said was actually very meaningful for me, and I'd like to share it with you this evening, because it's very good advice when you go visiting people in such situations. What she said was, look, all the other people who come and visit me here, they all make me even more miserable, because they're so sad I'm about to die and sick. And you're the only person who comes in here and treats me as a human being rather than as a dying person. You come here and tell me jokes. What's the latest one? Because when you're dying, do you always want to be told, oh, how are you feeling today? When you like a nice few jokes at the very end, just to cheer you up, because you're feeling really down. You're feeling sick. You're dying. You just want to sort of be cheered up a little bit, or inspired, or give a few nice instructions on what to do when you do die. But don't be morose or sad about it. There's enough time of that when you're by yourself. When you're with your friends, you want friendship. And so, not seeing the dying, but seeing the person. Not seeing the body which is about to go, but seeing something inside of that, which was there before she was born, and which is going to be there afterwards, floating around, seeking for a new body or whatever. So when you can actually see this body is not sort of a self, it's starts off as a little baby and then grows up into a human being and then goes to a big baby again. That this is just the nature of the body. So the teaching of non-self allows us to have detachment to this body. We don't cling to it. We can let it go. There's so much more happiness and freedom to let this body go and let other bodies go and not worry so much about it. You have to let your body go sooner or later. It's not yours, so why not let it go? But then it gets to the deeper part of it. I've stayed on that part for a long time because it is important. We have really to sort of see this inside of us. It seems obvious on the surface. Get it deep inside of us, and it will save so much suffering and problem and tears and worries in our life, and it will free us to have so much more happiness and peace in life. But deeper than that, we've got this thing inside of us which is deeper than the body. Some people have had out-of-the-body experiences, and they know that when their body is dead, they're still around. But what actually is still around when the body dies, or what was there before the body was born? Where did it actually come from? And this is actually where we start to look at that which we call the mind. In Buddhism, the body, the mind is, if you like, that which feels, that which knows, that which does, that which can listen, that which experiences the pain, that which experiences the beautiful sunset, that which decides what to do next. This is what we call the area of the mind. And we don't call it a soul in Buddhism, we call it a mind, because we want to get out of this idea of a soul or a self, because even this mind of ours, we could actually see it changing from day to day, from time to time. And especially, this is where we get into out and out Buddhist teachings, especially look at the feelings in the body, the aches and the pains and the pleasures in the body. And those same feelings through the sense of sight, the beauty and the ugliness, lovely sounds, unpleasant sounds. And the Buddha said, have a look at these and see that these too aren't yours, but they belong to nature. The owner of all your pleasure and pain, all the beauty and ugliness, is not you, but nature. Because we always seek to own and control the pleasure, the beauty, the deliciousness of life. We always try to control by getting rid of the ugliness, the pain, that which is not delicious. And this is the struggle which we call humanity, which we call life. And it's a struggle which is endless and will never find fulfillment, because these things are beyond you. How many people can get just pleasure, 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 even for one day, without getting some pain or disappointment? How many people can even sit still without needing to move? Why do you move? Why do you scratch? To get rid of some irritation or pain or discomfort. That's why we move. Even for 5 minutes, it's almost impossible to get just absolute pleasure. This is why that if we look very carefully, using our insight, using our wisdom, we can see that this which we call feelings, pleasures and pains, beauty and ugliness, does not belong to us. It's not mine. We can never possess it. All of the cravings of life is trying to possess this, trying to possess beauty. How many people just work hard and become millionaires and put all of these wonderful paintings and gardens and stuff like that in their house? And as soon as it's there, after a while, it tends to disappear. They get used to it. And they cannot see the beauty anymore. Or it just disappears. No one can own beauty. No one can contain pleasure. It comes and then it's gone. And no one can avoid ugliness. No one can avoid displeasure. When we actually understand this, this is nature. We get pleasure in life, we get pain in life. Welcome to the club. So we don't get miserable when things go wrong, or when we ache, or when we're in pain. This is what we expect. We don't try to get pleasure, 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 because that is an endless, fruitless source. When we realize these things don't belong to us, only then can we let them go. It's amazing what happens when you let go of pleasure and pain. Sometimes what people like to learn is how to let go of pain, but not let go of pleasure. We'll keep that one, but just let go of pain. So when I tell stories of how to let go of these feelings, how to let go of pain whenever you're very, very sick, or you've got toothache, or you've got a bad stomach or something, monks are very good at doing things like that. We train ourselves to be able to let go of these physical feelings. But you can't let go of one without letting go of the other. It's both or nothing. So if you're attached to pleasure, you find you won't be able to let go of pain. That is a problem. So if you really want to let go of these things, you can actually push these things aside. And you can watch these things, but without identifying with them. Sure, there's pain, but it's not me that's hurting. This is actually how to let go, actually to separate. This is what the Buddha once said. He said, even though the body is hurting, the mind doesn't need to hurt. It's a great thing to do, and many people do that from time to time. You see monks or nuns or even good lay disciples sort of being able to sort of enjoy enormous pain, just with complete equanimity. Just noticing it arise and fall. It's just pain, that's all. When it's my pain, it's a problem. This is what we mean by actually letting go. Again, this is one of my old stories of one of the first times I had to do this. Toothache in Thailand, first year as a monk, in a jungle, no telephone, no Panadol, no doctor or dentist within Kui. You just stuck with it. And when you get sort of pains like that, and it was actually a huge toothache at the time, and it was so bad there's no way you could sleep. First thing I did, having this bad toothache, middle of the night in the year and overseas, I tried to meditate it. I tried to control it, get rid of it out of my mind. Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, get out of it. But I couldn't control it. I couldn't watch my breath. You just watched the pain instead. And I couldn't stand it. It was just too bad. So I decided I'll do this walking meditation, which those of you who come on retreats, see we do a walking meditation, walking backwards and forwards. I had to stop that because I found after 10 minutes I wasn't walking meditation at all. I was running meditation. Because this is what happens when you're in great pain. You get desperate and you can't do anything slowly. You're actually running backwards and forwards. So I gave that up. And then I went back up to my heart. I thought, have this Buddhist chanting. All these almost like prayers. I thought these were really powerful. These might work. So I started doing the Buddhist chanting. And after 5 minutes, I had to stop that as well. Because I found because you were desperate and with pain, I wasn't ordinary chanting. I was shouting at the top of my voice. I was afraid I'd wake everyone else up. So I went on like this for a while, just trying every possible tool I had to try and get rid of the pain until nothing had worked. And it's a beautiful situation which some of you might come across in life. You tried everything, nothing works, and you just cannot stand the situation of pain any longer. You can't endure, but you can't get rid of it. Beautiful situation, because that's so pregnant for wisdom and things to happen. What happened for me anyway is I just remembered all the things which people had told me all those years. Let go. And just that word came up, let go. And because of that situation, I did let go. And it's an experience which many people have also repeated. As soon as you let go, trying to get rid of the pain went. Just as pain was replaced by bliss. There's no pain there at all. I realized afterwards that physical pain, the reason it was there, or rather the worst part, the 99% of it, was The mental pain, I didn't want to have this. I wanted to get rid of this. Get out of here. As soon as I said, doesn't matter, you can be here for the rest of my life. You can even get worse if you want to. That's called letting go. No more controlling. It's just part of nature. It's not my business. As soon as I did that, that's called letting go. That's also part of non-self, not mine. Please remember that story, because it comes to each one of us sometime in our life, and we'll have a pain, a physical pain, which is so bad we can't endure. We got, for one reason or another, there's nothing we can do. Middle of the night, or out in the bush, or something or other, or the medication doesn't work. Remember that story. Letting go. Don't try and get rid of the pain. Don't try and send it somewhere else. Just leave it alone. No problem. Now, of course, the warning here is that when I tell that story, some people have tried it and they said it doesn't work. And I told them why, because they said, okay, let go, let go, let go. You're still here. Why haven't you gone yet? That's not really letting go. That's trying to get rid of it. You've got to allow it to be. Allow it to be forever if necessary. Not your concern. You're just noticing with, but not controlling. That's what we mean by letting go. And once you can actually see this from your own experience, and actually you know this is true. All these aches and pains, beauty and ugliness has nothing to do with me. Not my business. And then you've let go of a huge amount of attachment in life, a huge amount of craving, a huge amount of business. So you're free from this constant searching for pleasure, this constant trying to get away from pain, always looking for beauty, always being repulsed by ugliness, realizing that this is just like night and day. I always wanted to have day and never have night. Can't be that way. But when you actually see the feelings aren't mine, it's just such a relief. So much more business has been finished with. I don't have to worry about this anymore. Sure, I'm going to have, if you don't worry about it and don't go searching for pleasure or pain, you still get the same amount of pleasure and pain. It comes by itself and goes by itself. You don't get any more or any less, because this is the nature of the human body, to have both. But what you haven't got anymore is this mental pain of not understanding nature, not being able to live with nature, but trying to make it something it can never be. And when the Buddha started talking about this, he said, go even deeper than just the physical feelings or the mental or the feelings of beauty and ugliness and things like that. You can even look at sort of what we call the mind itself, the knower itself. What knows all these things? Not just the objects of pleasure and pain, but the screen on which all this is played out. That's the interesting part, because at the very depth, people think that they are the one who knows. That I am the one who's listening to this. I am the one who is seeing, as if you are just the other side of your eyes. Something looking, something hearing. And this is actually where the deep meditations can really help uncover that illusion. The consciousness is like a television on which all these different programs are played out. Sure enough, you can see the programs change on the 6 channels: sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and mental consciousness. You can see the different programs on each channel. Now, beautiful sight. You can see the sight channel now if you're looking at me. Now you switch quickly to the sound channel if you're listening to what I'm saying. Or you might even be on the other channel just thinking about when can you go home. Whatever other channel you're on at the moment. But you can see those channels changing. You see, these channels change. But in meditation, you see, first of all, 5 channels completely turn off. You're just left with one channel, the mind. And then if you go into deep meditation, You see actually the television set disappear. See even consciousness, the screen on which all this happens, disappears. When you actually see the television go, just vanish, not just the images on the screen, but the television itself disappear. And that's the data, the experience, which shows you that even the knower can come and go. It's not you, not a self. And of course, that's a bit challenging, but it's not as challenging as the other half of anatta. And this is the one I talked like this even recently in Thailand to some of the monks there, and even it scared them. I'm going to scare you now. Even the doer, that which does. I really enjoy talking about this. That which does. Who chose to come here tonight? Was that you? Or was it that you had no choice? Those of you who are scratching somewhere, or holding your finger to your mouth, or moving your jacket, did you really decide to do that? Was it you who decided that? Or was it all conditioning, all cause and effect, the interdependent play of conditions? You know, you're all great mimics. Much of what you did was because your parents did it. You know, when I was young, I thought I would try and be independent, not be like anyone else. So I bought my green velvet trousers. No one else in my family had green velvet trousers. And then I went to one of these great rock festivals in the Isle of Wight. And I found there was about 10,000 other people with green velvet trousers. Oh, I wasn't independent after all. I was just as conditioned as others. So sometimes we really think we're unique, we're independent. But who's doing that? Now, part of the training in meditation is actually look at where the doer comes from, where will comes from, where choice comes from. Any psychologist should be able to tell you that that which you take as will is not what initiates actions. There's a very nice article in one of the magazines recently. We got actually the book in the monastery recently from where this comes from. It's actually a Buddhist in England called Susan Blackmore. And she was reporting this lovely experiment where some students were asked to just flex their wrists backwards and forwards. And they had some gizmo attached to the brain which could measure what is known as readiness potential in the brain. They could actually measure from when some synapses started to fire where the first stage of actually moving the wrist, when the brain decided to move. They could measure that to a millisecond. And they could also measure, they had a little buzzer or some other gizmo, but when they decided to move their wrists, they'd press a buzzer and they'd move the wrist. When they were aware of their will. Now they had the two times when they were aware that they chose to move their wrist and when the brain started moving. Which one came first? The brain had already began the moving of the wrist first. Afterwards came that which we perceive as will. When we think we're choosing, the whole process has already begun, and it is irreversible. So when you choose to scratch your face, when that first awareness of choice comes up, the process has already begun, and it's unstoppable. What we're saying here is that which you think is choice, is will, is a complete illusion. In the same way, when you go to the supermarkets and choose your green velvet trousers, it's not you who's doing that. It's all your friends or the advertisements or whatever else. They made you choose that. So who's in control anyway? So that ends this evening's talk on anatta. A nice place to end. Leaving you with a very nice deep question. So thanks for listening to the talk. Are there any questions or any?